Now you may recall from earlier on that I deliberately left one of these edges in this very sawn state, whereas I only cut one earlier on. The reason for that is I want to add a slight 10-degree bevel to the top edge. This should allow rainwater to run off, and I'll do this at a table saw. You know, I think there's a lot to be said for simple techniques like this that undoubtedly help to extend the life of your exterior woodwork. I mean, at the end of the day you can paint and treat and do whatever you like to your timber, but simple steps like this can help to avoid water from penetrating into the joints. And now, because the blade tilts to the right hand side on my saw, I set the fence over on the left, so that as I feed the timber through, it's less likely to become trapped and bind the blade. It should be safer this way. Now, if you compare the original sawn finish of these posts with the finish I was able to achieve on my bandsaw, you see there's quite a stark contrast, quite a difference between the two. I don't really want that on the finished planters, so what I'm going to do is take a worn 120 grit belt in my belt sander, just very lightly try to smooth the surface, only very slightly. I want to leave the saw marks in. Just want to try and remove some of this roughness, if you get what I mean, so it's not a million miles away from the finish I've got here. Now ready to start assembling the 4 end frames, and there are a few things I want to check and make sure I get right along the way. First of all, the most important thing I think is to make sure I get the 2 posts for each frame aligned correctly, so the mortises must meet, there you go, 2 inside mortises and 2 mortises going face to face, and also the cuts on the ends must be identical. They can't be like this, for example. And with the rails themselves, I want to make sure that this beveled edge slopes down into the inside face of the posts. I've got my sash clamps ready, and I've made these little wooden blocks out of some scraps of 4x2. I made the cuts on my saw using the depth stop. It basically stops them from falling over. I'm also using Type Bond 3, the ultimate wood glue, for this job. Basically for its waterproof properties. It's the most waterproof glue I have, and unlike polyurethane, it doesn't expand, which would be a problem here, because obviously that would fill the mortises in here, meaning I then have to clean these mortises out before I put the long rails in. Let's see how it goes.
Emma, 24, technician for Autoglass. My last customer at Autoglass planned a week by the seaside with his family. He'd been ignoring a chip on his windscreen, too busy organising their break. But when he turned on the aircon in his car, crack, the chip slipped.
Now whenever I'm assembling any kind of frame like this, I find it helps to sight down across the two rails here to check that they're both parallel and in the same wind. If you look at these ones, you can see they're actually pretty good considering it's all sawn timber and the legs aren't perfectly square. But if you do find that one side is higher than the other, then what you can do is put a couple of clamps on there to hold it down. For example, if this corner here was high, I put one down on this end first and another one at the back to hold it in place. Well, it won't reach there, but you get the idea, I hope. The size clamps I'm using are they're reasonably cheap ones from Toolstation, made by Silverline, and yeah, for the money they're pretty good actually. I've used cheaper ones made from aluminium and they're not brilliant, but for a little extra money these ones are actually quite good. Well, ironically, the last frame I came to assemble was slightly in wind, so I've already put a clamp on this corner. I've got one more over here to hold it down, and that should do it. That's pretty good. Now the instructions say to leave this glue, or leave the job in the clamps for half an hour, after which time you should be able to remove it, provided you don't stress the joint for another 24 hours. So